Naming our daughter. After my husband's late wife and unborn child, I'm 30, and my husband, John, is 32. We've been married for 2 years, and I'm his second wife. John's first wife, Isabel, tragically passed away 9 years ago while 7 months pregnant with their daughter, whom they planned to name Rose. John carried immense guilt over their deaths and underwent extensive therapy to cope. He still speaks fondly of Isabel and keeps her photos displayed in our home, which I've always respected as part of his healing process. 5 months ago, I discovered I was pregnant. It was unplanned, but John and I were overjoyed. Recently, at an ultrasound appointment, we learned we're expecting a girl. We've been tossing around baby names for days, but this morning, John sat me down and announced that he wants to name our daughter Isabel Rose. Isabel as the first name, to honor his late wife and Rose as the middle name for their unborn daughter. I was stunned. We've discussed having children before, and he never mentioned naming them after Isabel or Rose. I expressed my discomfort, explaining that naming our daughter Isabel Rose feels like an attempt to recreate his late family. I want our daughter to have her own identity, not to grow up in the shadow of 2 deceased people. John grew defensive, insisting that naming her this way would allow his late wife and daughter to live again through our child. I countered that our daughter deserves to be her own person, not a memorial. The conversation escalated, and John accused me of trying to erase Isabel and Rose from his life. I reassured him that we'd always honor their memory by talking about them with our daughter, but I believe naming her after them crosses a line. John doubled down, calling me a hypocrite because I suggested my sister's name, a living person, as a potential middle name. I explained that my sister's name would be a middle name, not the primary identity, and that my sister is excited to be a loving aunt. John, however, called me disrespectful to the dead and stormed off to our bedroom, refusing to discuss it further. I sought advice from family and friends. Most agree that I'm not wrong to prioritize our daughter's individuality, but a few believe John's grief justifies his request. One friend, a therapist, suggested that John's insistence might stem from unresolved guilt, and rejecting the name could trigger self-loathing. To complicate matters, I've received Facebook messages from people I assume are Isabel's family, likely informed by John, urging me to name our daughter after her to help them memorialize her. I sympathize with their loss, but I feel pressured and uncomfortable. Commenters online have strong opinions. Many argue that my daughter shouldn't bear the burden of memorializing 2 people she never knew. They believe John's request, while rooted in grief, risks hindering our daughter's development as an independent person. Some suggest he needs therapy to address his unresolved pain, rather than using our child as a means of healing. Others condemn Isabel's family for pressuring me, a pregnant woman, and question John's judgment for sharing our private conflict. A few recommend I temporarily stay with family to gain perspective and protect my boundaries. I'm torn. I don't want to dismiss John's grief or Isabel's family's pain, but I believe our daughter deserves her own name and identity. Am I being selfish? My fiancé's reluctance to parent. My sons, I'm a 46-year-old man with 2 young sons from my ex-wife. I recently got engaged to my 22-year-old fiancé, who has a wonderful relationship with my sons. They adore her, and she enjoys spending time with them. However, she's made it clear that she doesn't want to take on a parental role or babysit, which I respect since my ex-wife and I co-parent effectively. Our jobs often require travel, and we typically rely on family or babysitters when we're both away. Last weekend, both my ex-wife and I had to travel for work, and none of our usual caregivers were available. As a last resort, I asked my fiancée if she could watch my sons for the weekend. She agreed, emphasizing that she wouldn't act as a parent but would ensure their safety. The next day, my ex-wife's parents offered to take the boys, but when I called my sons, they begged to stay with my fiancée, saying they were having fun. I checked with her, and she was fine with it, so I let them stay. When we returned, my sons raved about their best weekend ever, filled with junk food, late nights, and no homework. My fiancée said they were no trouble. I saw it as a harmless, fun weekend and didn't think much of it. However, my ex-in-laws were furious, calling me irresponsible for leaving my sons with someone so young and inexperienced. They even texted my fiancée, hurling insults at her. I was shocked, as they had no issue with her before. Online opinions are divided. Some criticize my fiancé's stance against parenting, arguing that someone engaged to a parent should be willing to step up occasionally. They question our age gap and suggest I'm prioritizing a whirlwind romance over my son's well-being. Others defend my fiancée, pointing out that she was clear about her boundaries and still provided a safe, enjoyable weekend. They argue that my ex-in-law's reaction stems from personal bias against her or me, not from any real neglect. I believe my fiancée did her best under the circumstances, and my sons were happy and safe. But am I wrong for letting them stay with her? Vacation plans. Without my boyfriend, I'm a 34-year-old single mother of 3 children, a tween, a pre-tween, and a kindergartner, from 2 uninvolved fathers. I acknowledge that I made poor choices in relationships during my 20s, but my kids are my greatest joy, and I wouldn't change them for the world. For the past 3 years, I've been dating my 35-year-old boyfriend, who moved in with us 8 months ago. He's been an incredible father figure to my kids, despite not being their biological dad. For months, my boyfriend and I planned a week-long vacation for just the 2 of us in July. Coordinating our work schedules and childcare was challenging, but I made travel arrangements. Recently, his workplace underwent a change in ownership, and he could no longer take the time off. Instead of canceling, I invited a friend to join me, as I desperately need a break. I haven't had one since my youngest was born 5 years ago. To ensure my kids were cared for, I arranged for my 20-year-old sister, who's on summer break, from college to stay at our house and help. I offered to pay her, and she was thrilled. When I told my boyfriend, he was furious, assuming I'd cancel the trip. He accused me of ditching him with my kids and my immature sister to go on a vacation we'd planned together. I explained that I never promised to cancel and that the timing was too difficult to reschedule. I suggested we plan another trip later, but he insisted he wouldn't help my sister with the kids unless it was a life-or-death emergency. He even hinted that if I go, our relationship might be over, calling it unfair to leave him with other men's kids. I feel exhausted and believe I deserve this break. My sister is capable, and it's only a week. But am I wrong for going ahead with the trip? Commenters are harsh. Many call me selfish for prioritizing my vacation over my boyfriend's feelings, arguing that I'm disregarding his role in our family. They believe I should have discussed my plans thoroughly with him, and that going without him risks our relationship. Others sympathize with my need for a break but criticize my communication, suggesting I blindsided him. A few support my decision, noting that my sister's presence relieves him of primary responsibility, and that his ultimatum is unfair. My brother's expulsion and my parents' reaction. I'm a 22-year-old university student living with my parents to save money while I study. I contribute to household expenses but focus primarily on my academics. My younger brother, Brian, is nearly an adult and has always been a troublemaker at school. He fancies himself a class clown, skips classes, disrupts lessons, and rarely completes his work, earning mediocre grades at best. Last week, his school informed him he wouldn't be allowed to return for his 6th year due to repeated warnings, suspensions, and detentions. Brian was furious, blaming the school for overreacting. Since then, my parents have been overly sympathetic, insisting Brian is a good kid who doesn't deserve this. Their coddling frustrates me, as Brian's behavior has been an issue for years. At dinner last night, I was sharing updates about my studies and job prospects when Brian interrupted, lamenting that he'll never have those opportunities now. My parents immediately comforted him, which pushed me over the edge. I snapped, saying he deserved the consequences and knew they were coming. The table fell silent, and my dad exploded, accusing me of lacking empathy for my family and telling me to leave if I couldn't be respectful. I retreated to my room, and the house has been tense ever since. Online, some agree that my parents' enabling does Brian no favors, arguing that he needs to face the consequences of his actions to grow. They suggest I could have addressed my concerns privately with my parents to avoid hurting Brian. Others think I was too harsh, as he's still young and likely feels ashamed. They recommend apologizing to ease tensions, but confronting my parents about their role in enabling him. I don't hate Brian, but I'm frustrated by his victim mentality and my parents' refusal to hold him accountable. Was I wrong to call him out? Dropping out of a wedding. Over a dress I was supposed to be a bridesmaid in my friend's wedding, but I recently dropped out due to the bridesmaid dress, and now she's furious. When we shopped for dresses, my friend made it clear she'd have the final say. She chose a dress with a low V-neck and a high slit, revealing a lot of skin depending on how you stand. I told her it was outside my comfort zone, but she insisted on it. I planned to grin and bear it for her sake until I showed the dress to my fiancé. He remarked that it showed more of me than he'd ever seen and noted that I looked uncomfortable. After discussing it, I decided the dress wasn't worth my discomfort and withdrew from the bridal party. When I explained my decision to my friend, she was devastated and begged me to reconsider. She texted my fiancé, calling him a controlling idiot, and told me she won't attend my wedding because she can't support my marriage to someone like him. I was shocked by her reaction. Commenters have mixed views. Some call me foolish for not negotiating alterations, like raising the neckline or shortening the slit, which are common compromises. They argue that blaming my fiancé makes him seem controlling and me indecisive. Others believe I made the right choice if the dress truly made me uncomfortable, suggesting my friend's insistence and subsequent attack on my fiancé reveal her own controlling tendencies. A few suspect I used my fiancé's opinion as an excuse to act on my own discomfort. I value my friend's happiness, but I couldn't wear that dress. Did I handle this poorly?